So right before I start filming, like seconds before, my power goes out. So obviously I can still film, but if lights suddenly turn on or things start changing, or it looks a little more dim than usual, that's why. Okay folks, so I may have just dropped a little less than $100 at half price books today. But you know what, it's payday, so. And I wanted to treat myself, and I haven't had a book haul since a really, really long time. So this is my beautiful, wonderful book haul. So I'll kind of talk about them, what I got them, my initial impressions of them, what little I might know about them. Tell me if you have also read these books, if you like them, down in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more bookish stuff like this in the future. And let's just get started. I guess I'll just go off the top. Look at my long receipt. Okay, so I have The Lies of Locke Lamora, which is a title I absolutely love. I have heard rumblings about this book online, and mostly that it's a pirate fantasy series, and I actually love pirate books. And it has a blurb from George R.R. Martin, which I think is maybe how I heard about it online. It's one of the few non-YA fantasies. I got a lot of YA in this haul, and I did want something more adult. It's a pirate book. I love pirates. So I really hope this is good. Next, we have, and I've thought about this book for over a year now, and this is Winter Song by S.J. Jones. And she and a friend of hers have the writing, publishing podcast called Pub Crawl. She used to be an editor, I believe, and her friend is a current literary agent. Obviously now she is a YA author, and they just talk about the publishing industry. They have some really, really valuable insight, and I mentioned this in my query videos, like about querying, but also just about really obscure things like contracts and sales and how that works. And so for that reason, giving their podcast, especially if you're looking for those very specific topics, is absolutely worth it. Do I think sometimes they're a little ridiculous and a little, how do I put this, oversensitive about certain things? Yes, it's a kind of cringeworthy to listen to them sometimes. Absolutely. So that made me always hesitant about her book. I always like the idea of it. It's a, oh gosh, what's that movie from the 80s with David Bowie where he plays the Goblin King, whatever that movie's called, The Labyrinth. It's a labyrinth retelling, sort of, and she always described it as like a gothic, romantic, fantasy, which are all things I love. So I've always kind of had an interest in it, but either way, if it's super cringe and annoying, then I'll just make a rant review, and if it's really good, then I got to read a good book, so I'm not losing. This is also by somebody who gives great, great, great writing and industry advice, and that is Brightly Burning by Alexa Dunn. I absolutely love her channel. She is the top writing person in the community that I would turn to. Her videos are so useful and concise, and I passed by Brightly Burning and I was like, you know what, Alexa, I have been listening and absorbing your free content for over like close to 2 years now. I'm like, I can throw in $9 to get your book that started your channel. This is also a retelling. It's a Jane Eyre in space retelling. So I like Jane Eyre. I'm not the biggest sci-fi person, which is the thing that's always stopped me from grabbing it before. Obviously, I like Star Wars and Firefly and more almost like space operas or space fantasy. Not the thing that I gravitate the most towards, but I love her, I trust her, and I am actually excited to read her book and be, you know, get a sense of what her writing style is and her craft. Okay, so this one I know absolutely nothing about. I've never heard of it before. I got because, like I said, I had a lot of YA books and I was like, I can't just have YA. I have to have some sort of, I don't want to say legitimate fantasy, but like I need another adult fantasy book in there for my own sanity. So I got Soul of the World by David Mealing. David Mealing. On the cover it says, 3 must fight, 3 must die, 3 must rise. It seemed like it had like a very sprawling fantasy, different places, maybe a few different perspectives. And I just liked that it sounds like one of the main girls, Sareen, a young street artist, cares only about surviving. And I was like, street artist, you say? That sounds great. I'm in. I like barely got past that line. I was like, I'm gonna get it. I finally got King of Scars. So you guys probably know, I mean, I even have the trilogy right there. I love the Grisha trilogy. I also own Six of Crows. I love Six of Crows. It's down in my living room actually. So I am all about like the Grisha verse and Leah Bardugo. And I have been hyped about King of Scars since it came out back in January. But I mean, full on like hardcover books are expensive. So when I saw this, I was just like, snatch it up. So I'm really excited about this. Even though I've kind of heard mixed things, not that it's bad, but I've definitely heard some people be like, it's not the most exciting read in the world. But you know what? I'll read that for myself because these have like pretty much all my favorite characters, mainly Nikolai and Nina, who I love. Those are my 2 favorite characters in the entire Grishaverse. Oh, minus the Darkling. I love the Darkling. The only thing that could possibly sell this on me more is the Darkling, who is like, mwah, 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 mwah. The Zuko and Kylo Ren of the Grisha universe, which is, oh, my heart and soul. But it has Nikolai, and I love Nikolai. He is so entertaining. So even though this book is pretty thick, I think it would be a relatively quick read. All her work is, I found. So I'm just so happy I finally have it. I'm so excited. So I have no idea what this book is about. All I know is that I have seen it every time I go into Barnes & Noble. And it's always like near the front of the not adult fantasy, the YA fantasy. It's always, it has its own thing or a display, or it's just right up front. So I think there's been a really big marketing push for this book. I've never heard of this author before, so I don't know if they're a debut, if this is just the first one that's taken off. I've seen bits of it on Instagram. I have no clue what it's about other than I think there's like a French vibe to it. I was talking to a friend, I told her how I got this book, which she has also heard about, but she has no idea what it's about. And she was like, oh, let me know if it's like A Court of Thorns and Roses, but with werewolves. And I'm like, I've never, even though it has the word wolves in the title, I have never considered the fact that there might be fantasy wolves. I'm not even sure if this is a fantasy book. I have no idea. Speaking of Court and Thorns and Roses, next we have I'm not even sure what this is, like a novella or a bunch of short stories. Court of Frost and Starlight. As of right now, I am currently listening to Throne of Glass. What is it? Queen of Midnight? Queen of Shadows. It's the 4th one in the series. I'm listening to that over Audible. And I have been wanting to read this for a while, even though I've also heard from a lot of people that it's pretty inconsequential. I mean, it's so tiny. It's just a collection. I actually don't know if it's a collection of short stories or just one short story, but I think there's definitely different perspectives where Court of Thorns and Roses was all told from Farah's perspective. I love this world. I love these characters. I am very much looking forward to like delving back into it and seeing what they're up to, even if it's not much. I don't care. I love them. I'll be happy to read whatever's going on with them. So I also got from an author who drives me absolutely insane, and that is The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. I like kind of mentioned, but I've never gotten into, that I have read Name of the Wind and Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. I actually have, it's on my bookshelf there. But And I've always keep considering making a video of how I feel because it's complicated, because these books drive me insane. They are some of the most beautifully written prose I have ever seen in my life. They are gorgeous. And I get this hankering. I'm like, I just want to read some of his work because it will be so inspiring because it's so beautiful and he has such a way with words. But the books themselves made me want to scream with fury and disappointment and confusion because they're so, in my opinion, and look, now I'm doing like a mini review of this series. It's like he has a mastery over his words, but a complete loss over plotting or character development or all the other things that matter when it comes to the book, but boy are those prose beautiful. So this is like a weird mini, I don't even know what the point of this book is other than like, man, if you're a real big fan of Name of the Wind, then here's a little like mini companion book. And it's about a character named Ari who is a broken, like mentally broken young girl who lives in the sewers at this like magical college. And I don't think they're poems. I think they're a collection of short stories or short like moments of her life. And it's also filled with a bunch of beautiful illustrations. This is exactly what I need because I like this character too. This is one of the characters that I found very compelling, and then she was severely underused. Man, I could just go on and on and on and on and on about this author, guys, but you know, maybe another day. Okay, and the last one that I got that I'm definitely going to read in October, I'm specifically going to read it in October. I'm going to be focusing on horror books, thriller books once October rolls around, and this is probably going to be the first one, and that is Dracula. I'm not a classic snob, although I like Jane Eyre, I like Jane Austen. I could use some work when it comes to the classics, but I've always heard that Dracula is genuinely entertaining even by modern standards. October's in a month and a half, so I was like, let's just pick it up. I like the cover. Actually, really, 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 above all other mythical creatures, I love vampires. I have always loved vampires, even before Twilight, which I was a big fan of back in junior high. When I was a little kid, I would rent the like black and white vampire movies. Something about them, man. I loved them. I can't believe I haven't read this yet. I bet I'll enjoy it. All right, guys, so that was my latest book haul. Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. Sorry the lights are so dark. But if you like this kind of video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Share it with the people that you love and care about. And subscribe, that helps me out the most. Check me out on Instagram. I am Miss Claire Bear with 3 S's. I've been trying to incorporate a lot more bookish and book-centered photos on there, so give that a little look if you're inclined to. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.